What is up, everybody? This is the Long Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Heskett, and this is episode 77. Today's guest is Nicole Hart. She's back for a part 2. So I'm bringing back a few people for part 2s now. We've been, we're 77 episodes in. And I have a lot of friends and colleagues, and I can bring them back and go into a deep dive. So if there's anyone specific you want to hear more from, let me know. Send me a message, email me, or do a comment here on the podcast. But with that being said, Nicole is a pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist. So we went from hunting last week into pregnancy and postpartum. Now, as many of you know, but if you're new to the show, my second daughter was born on July 1st. So it is 6 weeks from the posting of this episode. She was born 6 weeks ago because now my wife is going back to work, or I guess it's week 7, going into week 7 now. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart, and it's a very important topic. Now, I know most of the audience is female, but those of you, the dudes in the audience listening, this can be important for your wife, especially if you're trying for another kid. That is in the plan in the future. So great episode of how kind of like to recover and get back into things. So Nicole has had 3 of her own kids. She had C-sections, and basically that recovery kind of sucks, especially when you're big into fitness and everything. So she's going to explain why you can't just jump back into your pre-baby fitness routine after you're cleared postpartum. There's like this kind of a gap area where you're cleared for exercise, but you're not cleared for you're not really ready for everything, and your risk for injury is very high. How to build a strong toned core postpartum. I'm not sure what strong is, but strong and toned core postpartum, and what movements to avoid when you're first starting back. Nicole is also a licensed nurse, so if you're like, this is just another fitness person, she has the medical background, plus she has the fitness and nutrition background and certifications to support this. So that's why she's on today's episode, and hopefully it is helpful to you. She has a 6-week core focus program for those of moms out there who need help, or if you've had a kid and you've never really fixed some issues and you have some issues that we're going to talk about in today's episode, definitely check her out. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Oh, one last note. Nicole was just getting over having a really bad cough. So in the episode, there is some coughing and some delays just because of that. I'm going to try to edit out a lot of it, but some of it just is uneditable, or I'm just going to miss it. So just a FYI, I know audio is a huge thing when I'm listening to podcasts, so I want to give you that heads up before heading to the episode. It's not much, but it is kind of in there a little bit. So if you hear something that sounds a little weird or coughing, that is why. What's up, Nicole?
Hi, Chris. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm a little tired, but it's fine. That's the thing with newborns, is you're always tired for the first year.
Yeah, dad life.
So it's been a little while since we've caught up. Here you are, you're back on the podcast for round 2. And this time you're going to talk about some different stuff.
Yes.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about pregnancy and postpartum. Is this a new certification you've gotten, or the new route you've kind of gone down with your coaching?
Yeah, this is a new certification for me, but when I first started my business, this is the route that I knew I always wanted to go in. I just had to get more formal training on it.
Gotcha.
Reason being is because that is how I transformed my body. So it is what really got things going for me. And that's how I got interested in core postpartum stuff to begin with.
Nice. Okay. So topic, my AC handles it. It is not my specialty whatsoever. I know the basics of it, but a lot of women just think that after pregnancy that, the 6-week mark, they can just jump right back into their workouts and they're trying to get the baby weight off. And it's just not reality most of the time. I know it's not going to be reality for my wife. Some women can do it, but a lot of women can't. And can you kind of explain why to the audience, why you can't just jump into getting back into your normal fitness routine?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had 2 C-sections, 2 pregnancies. My first pregnancy was twins. My second was a singleton, but both times they were C-sections. And after both times, at the 8-week mark, post C-section, because you got to go a little bit further for C-sections versus a vaginal delivery, you're told all clear, and that's it, right? You're clear to resume all normal activity, right? And so you just assume that means I can go back into everything I was doing pre-baby, because that's really what is indicated, honestly.
Yeah.
There's no one telling you like accept this, or you need to ease back into workouts by doing this, right? So there's really no direction after that. And so why wouldn't you just assume that you can get back into your fitness routine afterwards, right? After my second baby, before I even got pregnant with my second baby, I was a nurse. But even still, being a nurse, I wasn't taught these things about my core, how to reconnect with it and rebuild it postpartum. Really, the foundations of helping yourself get back into a fitness routine post-baby, right? So if you think about it, when you're pregnant, no shit, your body changes a lot, right? A lot is going on. And so again, after baby vacates, you just assume that you can go back into your normal workouts because you are no longer pregnant. But if you look at what happens during pregnancy, your center of gravity changes. Muscles are going to be stretched out a lot. They're not going to continue working because they don't have to work. They're on vacation for 9 months. And so different muscles, like the muscles in your back, are going to take over they're going to compensate for things like holding you upright, whereas your core should be doing that when you're not pregnant. Some of your back muscles are now starting to take over. And after baby, your core isn't just going to be like, all right, vacation's over, time to hop back to work. No, a lot of women, myself being a C-section mom, so those low abs especially, but a lot of women have lost touch with their core muscles because they haven't had to connect with them or work them now for 9 months, right? And so the very first thing you need to be doing to start to set up that foundation for going back into workouts is reconnecting with your core, because if you can't connect with it, then you can't strengthen it, right? And I'm sure that with workouts and stuff, every movement, you need to involve your core, because your core is going to help to stabilize you. If you're not able to brace properly, if you're not able to stabilize yourself, you're going to risk injury. And also, you're not getting the most bang for your buck in a workout. So that is why you need to start by reconnecting with your core so that you can strengthen it postpartum, because you can't strengthen it if you can't even connect with it, right?
Yeah. So what would be, before everyone runs off and starts doing crunches while listening to the podcast, where would you start somebody with reconnecting to their core?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, and a lot of women, I'm sure, are going to eye roll. And like, that was me too. I was like, I want to work out. I want to sweat. Like, I want to feel this workout, because you want to get your pre-baby body back, right? Like, as quickly as possible. But you need to start with breathing. Breathing is actually the best way to start to help your body to reconnect with itself and your core postpartum. So myself, for example, I had a C-section. And so those low abs, they took a long time for me to get feeling back there, and be able to strengthen them postpartum. And I started doing that by different breathing techniques to help wake up and re-engage those low abs. So start with breathing techniques, because that's going to be what is going to help you to connect. And you can strengthen so much of your core by using breathing techniques and doing them in certain ways to help you, number one, reconnect with them, right? But then also, as we progress, strengthen them. And so I know that a lot of people are like, breathing's not a workout, but I promise you, if you're doing it right, it is.
Well, I know, like with my wife, with the last pregnancy, like her breathing is thrown up because you have this, massive thing in your stomach, like that's pushing up. It's changing the way you're breathing. So your diaphragm's all messed up and you're not actually breathing properly for the last couple months. So it makes sense. Like, you're not only can you not use your core, probably the way you breathe is also messed up, and you probably need to fix that first as well, which, if you want to get the most bang for your buck with your workouts, you need to breathe properly.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the other thing is a lot of women are stuck in a different breathing pattern that is actually um likely contributing to the mom pooch that they have, right? Because number one, they can't connect with their core. And then number two, their breathing pattern is off. And so breathing, when you're inhaling and exhaling, you're like having different amounts of intra-abdominal pressure, right? And so if you have a breathing pattern that is incorrect, you might be putting too much pressure down or down on your pelvic floor or even out on a diastasis, which could prevent diastasis healing. So yeah, your breathing pattern absolutely changes, and then it doesn't always just go back to how it should be post baby.
Well, no, a lot of people just think like you snap back, but it's like if you're doing something for 9 months or even 3 months every single day, like you don't just magically like, oh, go back to normal. Like the body's built these neural pathways of, okay, this is how we have to breathe to stay alive. So we have to take these short, shallow breaths. So you're like sort of hyperventilating, and that's your new pattern. So once baby comes out, it doesn't just like go back. Like you need to retrain. So what are some of like the breathing techniques that you use with clients to help them retrain and connect with their abs? Is this like box breathing, crocodile breathing, something like that?
So we start very first with learning how to breathe in a 360-degree pattern. I have not had a client yet come to me with a good 360-degree pattern. I have people who only belly breathe. I have clients come to me who low abs are very weak, and so you can see on their exhale there's some lower belly pooching. So it tells me we need to increase the strength of those low abs. But so very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, number one, look at your posture to see where it is likely that your air pressure is being directed to. And then also we're going to do videos of what does your breathing pattern look like, because that's going to help me know where we need to start with breathing. And
Gotcha.
every single person that I've started work with this, they need to start working with a 360-degree pattern. So yeah, that's where I start pretty much everyone, and then we kind of progress from there.
What's a 360-degree pattern?
Yeah, so a lot of women, when you're cute, or like people in general, right, have gotten like in their heads, because it's been cued so many times, you need to belly breathe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so a lot of people will just breathe in and out of their belly, but we should actually have lateral rib expansion, we should have belly expansion, and we should have back expansion coming out. So if you think of it like a Coke can, you should be going out like a Coke can, like a canister kind of. But a lot of people, they either get like the only belly or they'll only get like lateral, right?
Okay.
Um, and so we need to work on that 360-degree breathing pattern, because that's going to help us manage that intra-abdominal pressure.
Gotcha. Okay. Like I know what it is, but I'm like the audience is gonna be there like scratching their head, like, what's a
Yeah.
360? Okay, so obviously different techniques and it's going to vary person to person, but what's like the most common thing you see with someone who's postpartum, or is it just like everyone's very, very different?
Honestly, everyone is so different. I would say slightly more often, I probably see more people with like a reverse sort of breathing pattern. So they're breathing all up into like their chest, and their shoulders are moving, and their neck. And breathing that way is actually signaling to your body something's wrong. And so that is going to affect your nervous system. And so a lot of times I will see that breathing pattern in women who also have a lot of anxiety. And so when we can finally get them start to breathing properly, sometimes it does also help with their anxiety. Not saying that that is always the case, but if you are constantly breathing in a way that's signaling to your body, we need to be in fight or flight, then of course you're always going to feel anxious, right?
Yes. Well, that was there's a good book called Breathe or Breath by James Nestor. And literally the entire book's about the importance of breathing properly and nasal breathing and all that kind of stuff. And one of those things that he talks about in there is you can either switch on or switch off your fight or flight with the pattern of breathing. And with what one thing you said, like that shallow chest breathing, like that is your like fight or flight type thing. So if you're doing that all the time, which is like a lot of the times when you're like third trimester of pregnancy, you're just signaling fight or flight all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And that pattern doesn't change. You don't go back to that 360 pattern if you had in the first place, which a lot of people don't.
Right, right.
So after they kind of like build a breathing pattern and you get that done, what's the next step?
Next step would be to work on engagement with your pelvic floor and your core working together. So sometimes we have to like start with just breathing, and then we'll bring the pelvic floor into like, okay, while you're breathing, here's what I want your pelvic floor to be doing. Can you do that? Do you know what it feels like to bear down? Do you know what it feels like to bring pelvic floor up and fully engage? So that would be the next step, is connecting with your core and then also bringing pelvic floor into it and knowing how to engage both simultaneously, because they should be working together as a unit.
Okay. And what exercises do you generally use to teach that? Because I know it's not going to be crunches.
No, no, that is definitely a more advanced thing once we know how to manage intra-abdominal pressure. Side note, I know a lot of women are like, I've had a diastasis or I have a history of diastasis, so and so told me I can never do crunches again. And that's not true. What you need to learn is how to manage your intra-abdominal pressure to do crunches properly. But anyways, so next step, I'm sorry, did you say how to like, did you say what was the next step after that?
Like what exercises do you use in that step? Because I know obviously like we go breathing, and then it's like most people are going to think like planks, crunches, flutter kicks, those type of core movements. That's definitely not where you want to go. So it's like what bridges that gap to get somebody to those other exercises?
Yeah, so I still do like, this is where I will incorporate some breathing with some sort of like core movements and get people working them together.
Okay.
So I will do things like 90-90 breathing with like throw pillows and stuff to help you with, you know, the breathing pattern that we've been working on, and then also having your legs in a 90 position with a throw pillow in between your knees. That can help to engage that pelvic floor so that your body starts to realize, oh, I need to be engaging both, and they need to be working simultaneously.
Okay, got it. So you do that, and then it's like eventually get you all the way to where you can do normal core movements.
Yeah, so we would be working on core strengthening first. Again, that does not involve planks, crunches, stuff like that, because
Okay.
still a lot of people by this point can't manage that intra-abdominal pressure very well. So we're slowly easing into things. We're doing things like bird dogs, fire hydrants, dead bugs, learning how to strengthen the core, manage that intra-abdominal pressure without overloading it just yet.
Okay. And I mean, I I do dead bugs and bird dogs, so that you don't necessarily have to progress past that too much.
Yeah, yeah.
They should be in everyone's routines. They're pretty much in all of my client routines, regardless postpartum or not, or male or female. Like dead bugs and bird dogs are usually in most people's routines. Like they're just a good exercise you should get really, really good at.
They are, if you do them properly. Some people I see
Yes.
through them and I'm like, you're getting nothing out of that.
Yeah. If you actually look like a dead bug, it's not done right.
Yeah.
You should slow, controlled, and then shaking the whole time. Um, okay. So when does someone actually start working out? Because obviously, like the whole point of here is like getting back to working out at, you know, starting to work out and then working out at full capacity. So when does somebody like, okay, now I can start doing squats and maybe some upper body movements?
Yeah. So I typically start to incorporate things like that around week 3 and 4,
Okay.
because things like squats, your glutes and stuff, that's part of your core. If you have weak glutes, you probably have a weak pelvic floor and core. So we do want to do things like your posture muscles, right? Your glutes, to help enhance core. Because like I said, if you have posture that's hunched over, your intra-abdominal pressure isn't well managed. If you have weak glutes, then your core isn't very strong. So we're going to start with very good posture exercises, squats and stuff like that, so long as I see that you can manage your intra-abdominal pressure correctly, to help with your core, because it's all connected, right? So
Mm-hmm.
around weeks 3 and 4 typically is when I will start to progress people to body weight squats. We're not throwing a barbell on there yet. for most people, but body weight squats, bands like banded pull apart, stuff like that to help strengthen your posture and your glutes while also still continuing to work on your core.
Okay. 3 to 4 weeks is pretty quick. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's a range for some people, but yeah.
As a general rule, like 3 to 4 weeks is pretty fast to go from like not being able to do anything to like, okay, like week 3, 4, like now we're going to starting to do other movements. And then I assume like after 3 to 4 weeks of that, then maybe obviously giant range as always, but possibly starting to load it a little bit like 3 to 4 weeks after that.
Yeah. So, by week 5, typically I'm trying to get people to overload their core.
Okay. So not even
so I do
3 to 4 weeks later.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's person to person, right? But we're trying to really progress this. We're trying to, get your core where you need it to be, while also keeping in mind that you want to, you have certain aesthetic goals that you want to hit, right? We don't want to drag this out so long, like longer than we need to, right? So as long as you're progressing properly, then we can continue moving down the line. So I will use things like balloon breathing. This is really advanced, but taking just a balloon without your hands around the balloon to help you blow it up, keeping hands on low belly and trying to blow up the balloon. Are your hands flattening out on the exhale? Are you able to manage your intra-abdominal pressure? Are your hands on the exhale on your low belly? Is it pooching out a little bit? Because that would be an indicator that your lower abs are still too weak for this exercise. But a simple thing like a balloon and then incorporating it with your breathing is a great way to overload your core unit. So I'll progress using things like that. And then also I'll progress by doing banded fire hydrants, maybe banded dead bugs or dumbbell dead bugs, different ways to help progress the movement, to help strengthen the core even more so that we can then move to deadlifts. Barbell squats, different things that different people want to do. But even if you don't have a goal of like hitting the gym hardcore, let's think about this baby that started this whole journey. Baby's going to get bigger. Eventually, you're going to be lifting a 30-pound toddler, 30 to 50-pound toddler. And then what happens when they want to go on monkey bars? And then you have to lift them over your head on monkey bars. That involves a lot of intra-abdominal pressure management and strength to be able to hold baby up. You don't really think about that, but really it does. And so we're really gearing our workouts towards whatever it is mom wants to do as she goes about her day-to-day life.
Well, the other thing with the toddler is, even though you might not be squatting 200 pounds, the 30-pound squiggly toddler, which I have now, is it's a squiggly pound off to one side. So it's not a barbell where it's evenly dispersed on like your back or evenly dispersed in front of you. It's off to one side, squirming around, moving around dynamically. And you're probably not thinking like, all right, I'm going to squat. I might hurt myself. Brace core. You're like, oh, I'm playing with my daughter or I'm playing with my son and we're having fun. And you're moving in ways that you might not in the gym. And so, yeah, I can see where you make a great point of what do you want? If they're 50 pounds, you're going to be playing with them, the monkey bars, getting down on the ground. Maybe they want to play horsey. They're going to jump on your back. You better have a core strong enough to support 50 pounds on your back while you move around.
Yeah. And it's funny too. So we got a puppy back in April. He's a German Shepherd mix. So he is not quite 6 months old yet, but he is 50 plus pounds already. And so as I'm training him to not pull on the leash, he's pulling me in different directions, right? So I'm having to brace my core, but my core wasn't really used to, having to brace while a dog ran across like laterally, right? And so I was like, oh, I need to work on this. I need to strengthen my core going in different ways, right? And so like wood chops, things like that to help build your core strength in different directions. But it's just one of those things where like real life is affected by the way that you work out. And so it's all connected. Like I said, no matter if you have a goal of being in the gym or not, you still need to be strong.
Yes. Yep. Just to play with your kids, or if you have a larger, I have a smaller dog, but she's still 28 pounds. And that gets heavy after a while. Like
Yeah.
you have to hold your kid through Disney World. I held my daughter through part of Disney World this past winter. And yeah, even though she was like 20 pounds, that gets heavy after 15 minutes.
It does. Yeah.
Like, and then where a lot of people, and I worked with a mom like this, she would always hold and like have that hip shift. So then every time she would squat, she would get this hip shift and then wonder why she always had low back issues. It's like, because every time she squatted, she shifted off to the left because she would hold her daughter and it didn't have proper, because she had diastasis recti really bad. It never really strengthened her core. So she couldn't support with a normal posture holding her daughter.
Yeah, it's crazy when you go, like when you really dive deep into all this, just how much it's all connected.
Yeah, it totally affects regular life. So, with that being said, what exercises should you avoid during this time?
So if you haven't done anything to even see where your core's at postpartum, you really just need to avoid it all. Start with the very, very basics by connecting with your core, breathing, connecting with everything, low abs, your transverse abdominals, all of that stuff, and progress yourself, right? So if you are training, if you hop back into workouts without being able to manage your intra-abdominal pressure, without being able to connect with your core, I mean, you're risking things like possible hernias, possible prolapse. You're risking things like leakage when you cough, when you sneeze, when you laugh, when you jump, all of those different things that, you know, moms kind of giggle about and be like, oh, peed again. It might be common, but it's not normal. And so there are ways that you can go about helping this, but why would you want to get it first and then work on it after that, right? Like, let's just prevent it from the get-go as much as we possibly can by taking the time to slow down, connect with the core, rebuild your core strength, manage your intra-abdominal pressure, and then progress from there.
You make a good point of like the laughing with like, oh, the leakage. Cause I remember working as a trainer and a lot of moms would be like, well, this is what happens when you have two kids or three kids or even just one kid. It's like we would do like jumping jacks or line hops or something like that, and then be like rush off to the bathroom. It's like, well, that's what happens when it's like, no, like you can fix that, but they weren't going to listen to me. Like you're just a dude. You're at that time I wasn't even a dad. Like you don't understand. I'm like, no, you can actually fix this. It just takes some time. And then the thing was like, well, who has the time for that? Because they just wanted to get their workouts in.
Mm-hmm.
We took a step back, you would never have to deal with this annoyance for the rest of your life.
Right. And then also, if you think about it too, so many women spend years trying to get rid of that mom pooch. Like they spend years hating just that midsection part of their bellies. And they're like, no matter how much I work out, no matter how much I diet, no matter what I do, I cannot get rid of my mom belly. And that's why. It's because you haven't taken the time to reconnect with your core and to build up your core strength. And so your core is just like this flabbiness down there that you don't really love because you won't just take a few weeks or like a few months, set aside the time and work on that intentionally, right? And so, maybe you lost the weight postpartum. Maybe, you're jumping back into workouts and you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I don't have prolapse. I don't have anything like that, but you still have that mom belly that you don't like. Are you really okay with that, right? And so it's kind of like trading off doing it now or doing it later when you finally just can't even stand to look at yourself in a bathing suit anymore because you hate your mom belly so much.
Well, if you have that too, it sounds like that's not body fat. That's just like your core
Mm-hmm.
not being able to go back to where it's supposed to be.
Right.
So that's increasing your risk for low back injuries or hip injuries with
Yep.
every like in and out of the gym, just like
Mm-hmm.
in the gym, squats, deadlifts. Now you're at a higher risk of hurting yourself, but just like picking up your kid or moving furniture around or even like grocery shopping and you like drops the bag of potatoes and pick it up like weird, like you shouldn't, but you like bent over a weird way. All of a sudden, like your risk for injury is skyrocketed. I'm not even gonna say like double, probably significantly higher.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Awesome. So somebody is they come to you, they have their issues. How do they get started? What, like, obviously we talked a little bit, but what does that process of like getting started with you look like?
Yeah, so I have two different options that I work specifically with women on their core, on their nutrition, and on their daily life habits, because really it's a combination of those things that are going to help you get results. And so it really depends. So my one option is evergreen. It's just private coaching for core focus. So you can hop in that anytime. My other option is like a hybrid option for core focus. So that is group style, but also with private one-on-one touch points for like assessments, for feedback, for stuff like that. Because again, for your core, everybody is so different that
Yeah.
I don't like making generalized plans to help you with your core. I have had two women come to me within the past couple of weeks, send me their breathing assessments, and they are wildly different and they need so many different things. So that's why I do a core focused hybrid versus like strictly group coaching, because I want people to get that individualized assessment,
Mm-hmm.
and also workouts that are going to be geared towards what the assessment showed us, right? So those are the two options you can hop into. And then what we would do is you'll submit me a couple of things like a breathing video, for example, so I can get an idea of where your breathing pattern is, what we need to work on first, and then we'll start our breathing stuff and our workouts from there. And workouts, they would change week to week depending on what it is you need. In those particular ones, people will send me breathing assessments multiple times, right? Because breathing isn't something that's just going to change magically overnight or even after a week. And so we're constantly keeping a pulse on what's your breathing pattern doing. How is your intra-abdominal pressure, how's that going? But as I like look every single week and like what we can progress, what we need to stay here on, and sometimes what do we need to regress on, because sometimes we do regress. So it's very, very high touch, very, very individualized to each person. But that is what it looks like when you're hopping into a core focused program with me.
Okay, so I can already hear some of the audience, like, how, as a new mom, like, how do I have time for this? So what's like the time commitment? Like, how much time per day are you spending? How many times per week are you doing these like breathing quote unquote workouts? I'm not going to say they're workouts, but what's the time commitment someone has to do to get the results that they want?
So literally the first week with your breathing, typically no matter where we need to start with breathing, it's about 12 minutes. 12 minutes, 5 days per week. And it's breathing, so we're not overloading anything. We're not like squatting a bunch. Like, I'm not worried about fatiguing the muscles, because again, it's just breathing. We're retraining those breathing patterns, and it's kind of like the more reps you do of it, the quicker it's going to come to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing that at least 5 days per week, 12 minutes a day. It's really not that time consuming. At most during the progression, you're looking at 30 minutes, and that's it. And that's give or take, right? So, and sometimes I have women who are like, I can do 20 minutes. And so we'll shorten it. And maybe does it take them a few more weeks to get to where, we're fully progressed? Sure. But that's the beauty of having someone who will customize anything for you and work with you with your schedule, right? Is we can do this and maybe just take a little longer. Or you can be like, all right, it's 30 minutes at most 4 days per week when we start to progress things. And so just deciding, can you do that? Or do we want to take things back a little bit and just spend a little bit more time wise going through everything?
Okay, nice. I'm just like new, most of them probably fairly new moms, probably around that 6 week mark. It's like you're dealing with the newborn, lack of sleep. You might be going back to work already. So, like,
Right.
how do you manage all this plus add this on top of it? Like 12 minutes, that's easily doable. And then you're building that habit early on of like, okay, yeah, here's my slot of time. And then can I just expand that time? Because like you said, at the end there, it sounds 4 times per week for 30 minutes. Like, most people can find that, even if it's like, all right, like I'm off work on the weekends. That's 2 out of the 4 days. And then I just need to
Mm-hmm.
find 2 more days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And does
Exactly.
it need to be, so obviously, like, it's probably best if you have like day on, like if you're doing 4 days, like day on, rest day on, rest, kind of like that, or like 2 days a rest day. But can they kind of do like 4 days in a row? Like I know with my wife, for example, her schedule's like she's off Friday through Sunday and then she works. So could she do 3 days in a row? Maybe you need like a day or two off and then get another day in. Is that still going to give her pretty much all the benefits of your program versus like doing it like say every other day?
Pretty much. I mean, I would prefer every other day, but again, we're not going heavy with like barbells and stuff. I'm not super duper worried about recovery if you have
Okay.
to do them like 3 days in a row. Because at most we're doing like body weight squats or maybe banded pull aparts, stuff like that, that yes, we're working your muscles. But if you really have to do them 3 days in a row, you're going to be okay.
I'm just thinking like the nurses, like obviously, like you were a nurse, and right, you were a nurse at one
Yes.
point, yeah. And
Yes.
then my wife is a nurse, and it's like the nurses working like the 4 10 hour or 4 12 hour shifts.
Mhm.
Like they go back to work, they're doing that maybe 4 days out of the week, and then 3 days like they just need to do one day of their work day when they're exhausted with a newborn, maybe other kids in the house. Okay, that all of a sudden now this sounds very doable. Of all right, on my off days, I can do it for 20, 30 minutes at most. And then I just need to find one other day in the week where I can do that. But then early on, it's just 12 minutes of breathing, which you could do basically on a break.
Right, right, yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you wanted to go over with your program?
Um, the only other thing is, so take me for example. I am not into hormones, like women hormones and stuff. That's just not my thing. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch on it. I have a network of people I can refer out to if need be. And so I also know that postpartum core pelvic floor recovery, that's not everyone else's like thing that they really want to dabble in, right? And so I do also offer templates, offer coaching assessments for other coaches clients, offer feedback and like direction stuff for their clients as well, because again, I know that what I do, not everyone wants to dive deep in and learn how to do, right? And I think that this is one of those things. It's a very foundational thing for postpartum women. They need to learn how to do these things in order to get to where they want to be, aesthetically, but also like from like a health standpoint, body wise, right? Like we don't want to be leaking when we cough. We don't want to have prolapse. We don't want to have hernias. Like these are foundational things that women need to learn. And so I will offer up different things to coaches to give to their clients to help their postpartum clients as well. Just like as my way to help spread the word of how important it is to rebuild your foundation postpartum.
Awesome. Okay. So, any last tips to give someone who is postpartum and they are trying to navigate getting back to their pre baby body?
Yeah, I know that you feel overwhelmed. I was there. It's very overwhelming looking at everything that you can do or quote unquote should do or whatever. But really what you need to be doing is starting with the very basics. Just like before you can hop into a diet, you need to be drinking enough water, getting movement and stuff like that. Before you can dive into workouts, you need to be breathing properly. You need to know how to connect with your core and manage that intra-abdominal pressure, right? So start with the basics, with both your nutrition and your fitness, and then progress from there. Don't try and hop in and do all the stuff all at once.
Awesome. Okay. So, I know you put out a ton of good content on social media and your Facebook group because I see it, I get tagged. I think I'm still in your group, so I get the tags when you use the at everyone. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is at Nicole Hart Fat Loss Coach, Nicole Hart _ Fat Loss Coach. My last name is Hart. I don't even know the name of my Facebook group. Let me double check it. It's C-section weight loss dash building a better body postpartum is my free Facebook group. And then on Facebook, I'm just Nicole Hart, Hart.
Awesome. And then you're on TikTok as well, correct?
I am. My TikTok handle is the same as Instagram. So
Okay.
Nicole Hart _ Fat Loss Coach.
Awesome. All right. So you have, if anyone wants to join your program, where can they go to get started with you?
Either the link in my bios, or you can just send me a DM. Like if you have questions about it, anything, I'm happy to answer any and all questions that people have about Core Focused.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Thank you for coming on, Nicole. All the information for Nicole is going to be down in the show notes, guys. So make sure to check her out, give her a follow. And if this sounds like you, obviously, this is not my area of expertise. Coach Lauren is certified in pre and postpartum help, but doesn't we are not specialists in this. So if you need a specialist, Nicole is going to be your person. So like if you're like my wife, Nicole's going to be the person for you to go to get back to 100% where you were before you had a baby. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Bye.
See ya. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Make sure to give Nicole a follow, check out her program. And if this is something that you need, definitely reach out to her. Or if you know somebody who needs the help that Nicole can provide, send her, refer out, send them the link to Nicole, send them this episode so that they can get familiar. Because sometimes it's weird, like, hey, like, this person can help you. And you're like, this is a stranger on the internet. I have no idea who this person is. Why are you sending me them? Sometimes it's better to just send the episode. So if you know somebody who's going through this, for them this episode so that they can listen and then follow up with them in a week or two, because people are busy and they forget. So sometimes those follow-ups are really helpful. I know I'm guilty just like anyone with follow-ups. Oh shit, I totally forgot to listen to that. I have on my list and I totally forgot. I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah, that happens. That's a real thing. With that being said, down below are also the other notes. We have one spot left for August. I know we're at the end of August, but there's one spot left for PWC coaching. So if you don't need all the postpartum help and you're ready to go, down there, fill that out, and we will have a quick conversation along with a few other links down there to check out, like our 5-day faster fat loss course, our 12-week rocking guide for those of you who are hunters. That'll be back on Friday's episode, I believe. It depends on how the week goes and depends on what I'm passionate about, but I'm thinking it's going to be about some of the archery training I did today. I'm thinking that, despite losing an arrow, which is always bittersweet, but I digress. Also, make sure if you're not following me on social media and you want the daily information from me that I put out 5 to 7 days per week, make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or join the Facebook community. With that being said, happy Monday, guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode.